Hello everyone! Ooh, I am not the right color. Let me fix that color grading. Hi everyone, I am your friendly neighborhood Prax. Welcome to the channel. Why do I look so wrong? There we go. That's better. I look like a human now. Hi everybody! I'm your friendly neighborhood Prax. It's Saturday night. That means it's book club night. Thank you for being here. Thanks for hanging out with me. I been chilling, having some good times. We didn't have book club last week because I had some stuff I had to do, namely celebrate my mom's birthday. Mom's birthday kind of took precedent. Love y'all, but mom's birthday took precedent. Um, and But you may have noticed some new wonderful graphics hanging out around here. That's all thanks to you guys who donate through Ko-Fi and all of those good things. Yes, there is a Ko-Fi. The link is in chat. All of that goes back into this and helps me do fun things like commission a really great person and friend to do the overlay for this because I knew I wanted it a little fancier and more different than what I usually do for all the overlays I make for the TTRPGs, and I wanted some particular assets, so I commissioned the wonderful Artificer Zero. Industries. To okay, that didn't work. Zero, what is Nope, that didn't work either. I will get it. Yeah, he changed his branding and he changed his handle, and it's like Artificer Zero, or is it Artificer Industries or Artificer Inc? I don't remember. Uh, I have to find out. I should be able to find out, but I'm struggling to find this. Uh, you know, why don't I just do this? Is it Artificer Inc? It might be Artificer Inc. I should know this. Nope, that doesn't exist either. I will find this out. It's going to bother me, but Zero did the wonderful overlays for this stream, for the book club chats, which I think is a great little upgrade, and he did some fabulous work, and I really, really appreciated it. Here we go. Twitch, why can you never be alphabetical? Like, wouldn't it be easy to make it just searchable by alphabet? It bothers me so much that nothing is alphabetical or searchable or organized on this, and it's struggle. It's a struggle. It's a struggle. Okay. Oh, it's haha. Here we go. Yeah, it's Artificer underscore in. Here we go. I knew I'd figure it out. Artificer underscore IND. There we go. Gave that shout out. Thanks, Crit, for helping me figure it out. But Zero did the wonderful overlays for today. I really appreciate them. Thank you, Zero, for all of that. I was able to do this because I had skills, or not, as the case may be. So that's a great transition. Hi, Coldrake. Welcome in. Coldrake joins the chat with the words, "Young woman, we need to have words about the Goblin Emperor." I take it you finished the book. I take it you enjoyed the book. Yes, more people. For those of you who don't know, or don't remember, Goblin Emperor is one of my favorite books of all time. It is by Katherine Anderson, and it is... I don't like the new cover. Look. So Coldrake says, finished and feeling like it stopped there? Yes. Yes, it did. And I would like you to realize, Coldrake, that the original, like, when it was originally published, was 2014. The reprint was in 2019. And some of us didn't have anything but, or 2018 and the reprint was 2019, but some of us only had that first edition until we got this discovery of the side stories. Yes, it is a emotions, it is feels, it is a very, very good book. Of course, when this goes up on YouTube, I will add the link to Katherine Anderson's website so that it will all be there, just like I do for every book I post about and talk about and chat about and we discuss here on the channel. I have not done a spoiler review of that book or discussion of that book, but we might do that. But we have a couple. So many feels. Yeah, there are just so many feels when it comes to that book. Faye says, it's been on my list on book 9 of an 18-book series at the moment, only paused for Pen and the Des Novella. I mean, that's fair. If you're in the middle of a series like that and you want to complete the series, I understand. I totally get that. I mean, that's why I'm doing some of these, read-alongs, so that we can have these series and discussions and I can read them. But I've been doing a lot of fun things. We did have a read-along for 2 books for January. We're going to talk about those. Pierce Brown's Red Rising and Steve Barry's The Templar Legacy. We'll talk about those. And then, but I also had a bunch of other books that I've read in the basically 2 weeks since I saw you guys on the 13th last. And none of these are going to be, there's not going to be any spoilers beyond like basic spoilers until we get to the read-along books. And I'll probably do those after the break so that we can have a nice clear division and there can be, make it easy for people to follow along and understand and, have a nice clear division. And, oh, I should turn the spoiler chat off. Because, I mean, we have this nice new graphic and I can turn the spoiler off. There we go. No spoilers for right now. But I did read a number of books. What should we start with? Should we start with the traditionally published book in the pile? Or the indie books in the pile? I feel like we should start with the traditional book in the pile because I have feelings about this book. So this is... Oh, I finished... Oh, Coldrake, did you not watch... Coldrake, go watch last session from the 13th. It's actually up on YouTube. Hi, there is a YouTube. It exists. And I did a spoiler discussion of all 3 books of the Bone Ship series. It's a little long. I did put the spoiler tag up for the entire spoiler discussion. I did a non-spoiler discussion, but I did have I finished the series. Let's let me have a moment to have all of my feels about that series. Spoiler discussion. I think it. I TLDR for Bone Ships. Yes, go read it. Please read it. Please read the whole thing, and then come back to me, and we can have more feels and more discussions and more things. But where am I? So what I read for this week. So first, the traditionally published book, Jade City by Fonda Lee. Nice, big book 1 in the Greenbone saga. Yes, Faye, it is the Greenbone saga. I did read Jade City. So I finished Jade City, and a lot of people say it's a mafia movie with ninjas, and I feel like that is inaccurate. I feel like that's a dumbing down and a bad comparison, because what this is this is a 1970s Hong Kong triad movie with magic. This is a Hong Kong triad movie with magic and politics. And I feel like that those are two different concepts, right? Like, saying something's a mafia movie puts you in mind of Goodfellas, Casino, Godfather, if you want to talk about the OG. Maybe even The Irishman, or a couple other like really big name, Mambo Italiano, if you want to go for comedy. Like, these are not that. This is a 1970s Hong Kong triad action movie that has magic in it. And I am here for it. Here for it 100%. I have complicated feelings about the book itself. Not the writing, not the story. Kind of complicated feelings about the characters, and I think it's because I'm very much of I am the type of reader, I need to like at least one of the characters, right? Like, one of the characters, wait, along the lines of the movie Black Sun, kind of, but think more like 70s, 80s, real, like, Hong Kong triad, like, all that's coming to mind right now is an actual... See, the other thing is, like, I also watch Chinese dramas a lot right now, and a series that's actually airing, or just finished airing, it's, what is it called? Hold on. Come here, my drama list. Is it called Shanghai Nights? Or Bamboo Nights. I think it's Bamboo Nights. Sometimes I have to remember what the English title of it is, and that's Bamboo Flowers. There's a currently airing series. Oh no, I know how to do it. I go to Avenue X. So hi, for those of you who don't know, one of the greatest people that I follow on YouTube is Avenue X. I will drop her link in chat, and then I will also drop the link when I post this on YouTube. Shanghai Blossoms, that's the title of it. Shanghai Blossoms. And she is Chinese, and she does a lot of reviews of Chinese dramas, and also a lot of discussion of the culture and explanations for why these things are, how things work in China, and what certain references they might be making, or, what, particularly for series that, rely heavily on, like, certain assumptions of Chinese culture or history or literacy. She does a really good breakdown of explaining, this is based on this Chinese, and if you understand this piece of Chinese media, then you would see this piece, and you would understand this. And I think it's a really great resource. I also really think it's really great if you're going to evaluate international media to follow reviewers of that nationality who can say, yeah, this is a really great version and this performance is really good, particularly if you're watching in with subtitles. And I admit, I don't speak Mandarin. So if somebody's saying like they, you know, if she says this is a really bad Mandarin performance and this is why, then I can trust her and be like, okay, so this is kind of where you go with that. So Shanghai Blossoms is the series. And it's currently airing on, and it's based on a book, and it's like a book, it's like a third of the trilogy, and it kind of goes for the whole things. But it is, here, I'll pull up the IMDb. Cool. And just look at this. Look at this beautiful 1970s, 1980s neon glitz. All of this, like, right? Like, all of this vibe. And, Wong Kar-wai is a very famous director who did a lot of Hong Kong action, like, aesthetic movies. And he's the one who did this series. Shanghai Blossoms is the name of the series. And I was watching this series and reading this book, and I was like, oh. I feel like people who dumb down this to just being a mafia movie with ninjas are really not kind of understanding that crime families and organized crime is a thing that exists across cultures, but the way those cultures express that organized crime are very, very different. And this book is really, really, really centered in that 1970s Hong Kong action flick triad. You know, if you've ever watched like an early Jackie Chan movie, right? Like the 1980s, 1970s, early 80s Jackie Chan movies when he's a cop in Hong Kong. Like those kind of feel for like the triad and how it works. That's this. And I firmly recommend it. But walking into this expecting the same kind of feel that you would get from The Godfather or Casino or even The Irishman, right? Like anything by Scorsese really would be inaccurate. And I feel that just kind of could be better expressed. So yes, firmly recommend, did enjoy, will be reading the sequel. Probably gonna get the sequel from the library right now, or if I have it. I don't think I have the sequel yet. I'll probably get it from the library. So yes, we'll be reading the sequel to Jade City, which is oh, what is the actual title of the book? I should be able to find that. Lee. Jade Legacy. Or no, Jade War. Yeah, because Jade Legacy is the third book. So Jade City, Jade War, and then Jade Legacy is the third book. Yeah. So Jade City, Jade War, Jade Legacy. So we're going to read Jade War next. So what have been people saying? Sorry, I should go scroll back up. Faye saying Kermit arm flare. Is that Jade City? I love the Greenborn Saga. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it, Faye. It was really highly recommended, and I know a little bit behind on reading it, but it was one of those I just kept putting it off for a variety of reasons. I think I was just not in the mood for it, and I really am a lot of a mood reader, and I kind of have to be in the right headspace for some things. referenced the wrong title. There was a murder mystery detective movie where a non-Japanese investigator teamed up with a Japanese cop to find out who murdered a female in the boardroom in the middle of a big party. No, it's, Coldrick, I think you're thinking of, Gaijin. Oh, Sean Connery and, oh, I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll come back to it. Yeah, Wesley Snipes and Sean Connery. There we go. Rising Sun. There we go. Yeah, Yakuza is very Japanese. There's similarities to this, but very, very different. I mean, this is very much a Hong Kong feel. Maybe Singapore if you follow a lot of like history of Singapore before like in the 1950s and 1960s, just post-war Singapore. It's very, I think a lot of people will really enjoy this book. Firmly recommend. We'll read the second one, which is Jade War. Okay. Now, so that was the traditionally published book that I read in the last 2 weeks. And then I read a lot of indie books. And so, first up, because we talked about the first book last time, I read, this is the first book, and for last time I read Blessing of the Equinox by Catherine Reynolds. Hi, by the way, she's Zero's wife, and Zero did the overlays. Just good book. And it was on sale on Amazon. She publishes on Amazon. She also has, it was free on Kindle Unlimited. It's a really good read. This is book 1 of the series, of the Fey Realm series, and it is a very traditional kind of, and not a traditional fantasy, and I don't want to use that. It's just a lot more classical myth, classical fairy tale-esque. The main character, Marsilia, who's this person here. By the way, if you, there's that. I need to refix my filters. I need to fix all of my lighting. There we go. That's better. Haha. So Catherine does all of her own cover art. So, she did the cover art for this. We also love the design on the side. Love the fact that it has a volume number on the side. Love that. But it's kind of like it's a beautiful kind of fantasy romance. Marsilia is a human sorceress who is raised by this very famous sorcerer and healer in the mortal realm. And I'm a huge advocate for tome numbering. Yes, please, so that when I see it on my spine, I know which volume it is. She's raised and trained by this very famous Fey healer in the mortal realm, and something comes to her woods and harms everyone, and she needs to go and figure out how to heal them. And she partners up with the almost 7-foot-tall dwarven warrior bodyguard that she eventually will fall in love with over the course of the book. In a nice kind of romance is there, but not the central part. And both characters work together. Both characters have their strengths and their weaknesses, and they complement each other, and they work together, and they're not, they recognize that working together is how they're going to get through these things. It is a really, really good series. Really good volume 1. And I finished it for the 13th. I then held off because I knew I was going to read volume 2. This is volume 2. Again, very, very pretty cover art. This is an entirely different character, and she is absolutely wonderful, and I love her. Um, and now Marsilia and Fiel are dealing with complicated politics in the Fey realm, and the possibility of tensions rising between the summer and winter court, between the winter court and the Svartalfheim dwarves, and all of these things. It's Koldrak, it's less Fellowship of the Ring and more Poetic Eddas, right? Like, these feel, and I could not put these down. Like, I literally read this in 2.5 hours. I read this in 2.5 hours. Go read this book. Go read these books. Like, just go read these books. I have already ordered the next 3 volumes in the series. Yes, I did that. But it's less Fellowship and more Jason and the Argonauts, the Poetic Eddas of Beowulf, or romantic sagas like the Song of Roland. All of that, you know, the classical myths of actual, like, Celtic myths, and the stories of the She and the Inshi, and the progression of the summer court and the winter court, and then the 2 equinoxes, autumns and spring, ladies of the autumn and spring. Excuse me. And it really does a very good job of having very interesting character growth and character depth, while also having a plot that is important, and you feel the stakes, like, you feel the weight and the stakes, but it's the story itself and how you'll eventually get there that feels most important. And the politics are getting really good, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the series, because there are currently, I think, a total of 5 books in the series. Also, who doesn't love a map? You got good map. But the actual series, there are a total of 5 books in the series, plus the prequel, which I haven't read yet, but I have gotten the first 2 books in the series. I'm going to order the next 3. And I'm going to get them in paperback. I did see, let me just pull it up, because I could be able to do so. Question from the chat. How would... So, Coldrake asks, would you compare the Praveen... How would you compare it to the Praveen series, peppered with the main storyline with history, and culture, but doing it with info on the Fey realm and factions? Not the same kind of way. Like, the plot is there, the whole kind of thing is there. It's just, there's a very different vibe, right? Like, this feels very, very much like, like, oh yeah, all of the books, by the way, are currently free on Kindle Unlimited. You can get them for free on Kindle Unlimited if that's your choice, or you can buy the physical copies, like I will be doing. But so, like, for example, the opening section of this book, like, I'll just give you the first line. The sharp tap, tap, tap jostled Marsilia from her dreams. Blinking, sleep-encrusted eyes in confusion, she glanced to the window near her bed. pre-dawn light was beginning to show over the tops of a sea of trees in spring bloom, pink and white flowers glowing in response against the still dark sky. Like, oh, it flowed. Like, this flowed. Like, there was no stopping. I literally read this in 2.5 hours, and I could not put it down. I think that Catherine writes beautifully written prose. I think that her characters are really well developed. I need to know more about Griselle and Arne, and not for nothing, the Queen of the Dwarves and the Shield Maidens that she's got that kick ass in this book. Like, I can't wait to read the rest of the series and find out more. So, yes, books 1 and 2 have finished. We'll be reading the rest of the series. Book 3 is The Broken Dragon. Okay, look, y'all, let's take a moment. Let's take a moment and appreciate this cover. Look at this cover art. Look at this beautiful cover art. This is absolutely gorgeous. And I think that's supposed to be Arnie. Or is it Fjell? That could be Fjell or Arnie. Ooh, wait, hold on. Oh no, it's Fjell. It's Fjell. Yes, Banners, like, that's a great comparison, Faison. It is Banner. If you've played the game Banner Saga, Banner Saga, that kind of enveloped you in the world. You knew that the world is rich and detailed and heavy with emotion, and there's a lot of story that feels like a fantasy, and not just a fantasy, but like a fairy tale, right? Like, and not a Grimm's fairy tale, but like an actual, like, oral tradition kind of fairy tale. And I think that this series really follows into that really, really well. So yes, you know, you can get the paperbacks for $15, or you can get them currently for free on Kindle Unlimited. I'm going to get the paperbacks because personally, for me, I like to read physical copies. Sometimes I need to get an ebook, but I like to really, really read physical copies. It makes it easier for me to read. Makes it easier to digest and understand. It also doesn't hurt my eyes as much. And, you know, I wear glasses for a reason, not just for the aesthetic. But yeah, and if you want to follow Catherine on the socials, that's Cozy Catherine with a Y. She's on Twitch, and you can also find her on YouTube and on Instagram. So yes, I firmly recommend that series, and they're relatively short books. Like, they're not long. They're relatively short. They're like 225 pages, but their margins are not standard margins, so it's a little oversized, but a little bit, probably is about 250 if it was standard page sizes, that kind of thing. And I love the feel of them. They're really good feeling books too. I can understand that. People having problems reading physical books after they've read ebooks for so long. I personally struggle with ebooks sometimes for the reading. I really, really struggle with audiobooks. Like, I just can't do audiobooks. For me, the problem with the audiobook is that I have a learning disability and a sound symbol relationships problem. That means that listening to things I have never read before that's not involving a dialogue becomes very difficult. Yeah, audiobook for a reread. I know that there are some people who have started doing what they call immersive reading, where they listen to the audiobook and read the actual physical book, either physical or ebook at the same time, and I would have problems matching that. Like, there would be a lot of reasons why that's not for me, but if you can do whatever you want and enjoy whatever you want, books are great in whatever kind of medium you can enjoy them in. But yes, go follow Catherine. I'm actually about to order book 3 in this series so I can have that book and then read that one. Next up of books. So I read a lot of indie kind of self-published books lately, and I like that because it's very interesting. This is Peace and Turmoil. Ooh, that's not showing well. There we go. Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks. She is someone I found through YouTube because she does a lot of book reviews, and this is her debut novel. And also, again, you can't see it real well there, but look at that spine art, and volume numbers on the spine. This is a big book, and it's it's very interesting. It's not quite self-published, but it is, and then it got distributed by Barnes & Noble. So you can go on to Barnes & Noble and buy this book. It is really, really in-depth. It's a very kind of classic fantasy, in a good way, in a really, really good way. You're following a group of characters through a very complex world. And, you know, we've got good map. Good map is always good. You get various art pieces on the inside at various points. You get little flipping back and forth between different characters and different perspectives. You're following actually 4 main characters who are from 4 different countries. And those countries all have been at peace for 30 years, and now the old kings and queens who brought in that era of peace are dying off, right? Like, they're getting old, change is happening, there's political unrest, there's turmoil, and this is like the advent of the next generation coming in and what they're going to try and have to do to take care of that. Along with a lot of interesting magic systems. I really like the magic in here. It's very unique in how it's described. I thought it was very well done. I felt that the concept of called versus touched weapons was very interesting. So, like, called weapons are weapons that are fully manifest through magic and created by whoever is calling that weapon. And touch weapons are weapons that are physical and have been, like, made by a blacksmith. And there's a line in here that's actually really interesting from one of the characters. What's his name? Roland? Yeah, Roland. Roland is one of the main characters, and I should know that, but I was like, Roland has a line about how to really excel with a called weapon, even though it's a weapon of magic that isn't fully only exists in the manifest of your mind and your ability to control that ability of magic, you still need to train with an actual physical weapon. So the ability to be a really good archer with this magical bow that he manifests through his own will, he still needs to know the mechanics of drawing, aiming, firing a bow. And I was like, that's a really unique system, because not only do you have the ability to, you still have to train your ability to manifest this weapon, right? Like, it's draining, it takes effort, which I also thought was a really great point, that the magic has a physical toll, that energy has to come from somewhere, and there's a finite amount of effort that you can do, but you can kind of train yourself up for it and work your abilities and develop them and improve them to a certain degree. But then you also have to train your physical understanding of the how that magical thing would work in the real world, right? Like, you can have people who can call physical elements and draw in, like you can have servants who have the ability to call heat and therefore can like heat water very, very quickly by touching it, by drawing like the fire element and then touching the water and having it heated. But you still have to understand that heat applied to the water is going to cause it to boil, and if you go too far over, you could scald someone as easily as you could make a warm bath, right? Like, I feel that that's a very interesting kind of conception of magic and how the magic works in this world. And I felt that the characters did a really good job of having realistic complaints before the main plot happened, right? Like, the world, when we begin this book, and it's a big book, it's 714 pages. So when you begin this book, the world is at peace and has been at peace for 30 years, effectively. Like, there's still low-level problems that have to be dealt with, but for the most part, there's no major international wars. There are a lot of there's a couple political dissidents in their own countries, which is probably always going to be a thing. There are bandits, there's like low-level stuff, but not international world-shaping issues at the moment. But each of the characters who are the focus of the book, each of the four main characters, well, 5 technically, but mostly 4. So you have point of view characters: Guinevere, Roland, Dietrich, and then Zodia, and technically Elizabeth, but Elizabeth is only for a little bit. She's like, I think, 2 chapters in the book. For her point of view characters. They are relatively young, right? Like, they are politically connected. They are from positions of privilege, except for Zodia, but it's kind of complicated. Her position is also privileged, but not in the same way. And they are all tied to the individual politics of the individual nations. And it could be so easy to be like, oh, they're all perfect because they're all, like, noble and they're all upper class and their world is perfect and there's nothing wrong, and then the Fire Nation attacked. That's not what she did. Like, there's still complicated issues because of internal questions, right? Like, questions of inheritance, questions of power, questions of legitimacy, internal questions of internal questions of internal politics. You have one kingdom where there are 2 possible heirs, and then there's a line of inheritance that went through that split a couple generations ago, and then the current rulers are from one line of that inheritance and not the other, and there's tension between the heirs of that split. There's the political question of, well, okay, you've got 2 heirs of 2 different countries who are relatively close in age, young, and have met once or twice because they're neighboring kingdoms, and have basically been falling in love through letters. But you can't really have the heir, your heir marry the heir of another nation for reasons like inheritance. And then you've got, of course, the magical systems and the various questions of these magical items that they're supposed to be guarding, and how that all ties into what will be the inciting incident in this book, and the question of who actually has the right to these things and what they should be doing with them. Right? These are items of immense power that can do a lot of really good things, but for the most part, they just kind of are protected by the current guardian, and they don't use any of those powers. So is there a moral obligation to use something that the gods may have given you as a healing device, but you don't? You just let it sit around, but it's a symbol of authority and a symbol of inheritance. And so it is really good. Really in-depth, really strong, and I love that there's all these little art pieces in between. You get really good renderings of, like, the magical creatures in this world, and every time that happens is like this cat-like being with horns and claws and I don't even know, right? And hi Lysander, welcome in. And if you look at the page, it says, "This is no ordinary fiend. If seen, warn everyone in nearby towns and villages." From a torn out page of Fire and Fiends, right? Like, you get the completeness of this book because not only are the, each of these little moments, taken from the, like, books that are written in the text, or little moments at the end of each chapter from the point of view characters, or other characters that may not necessarily be the point of view character, but are, like, attached to the point of view character. So, like this, right? Like, this character art rendering. She is absolutely gorgeous. Her name is Genevieve. She's one of the main characters. Genevieve Vergrand, my closest friend. We don't have a lot in common, but she is like a sister to me, and I love her dearly. I was saddened when Roland was given the dagger, as I know he loves her, and I'd always fancied the idea of she and I being related. From the sketchbook of Elizabeth Al-Murtaugh. This is, yes, a very, very teeny pocket-size chonker of 714 pages called Peace and Turmoil, The Dark Shores, Book 1, by Elliot Brooks. And I will just pull that up because I think it'll... here we go. And I've got beautiful new overlays. Thank you, Zara. So this is book 1. Yeah, it's a short read, at least for me. It was really interesting. Really kind of a really good book. 30 years of peace have graced the lands of Abram. The waning bloodshed from the War of Fire has ended, and the new generations have only the horrid tales of their forefathers to remind them of their country's past. Poverty no longer prevails, the sights and palms of men have grown soft, yet foreign nations dictate more power than they know. Civil unrest stirs amongst the first, the heir to the throne of Mysidia, and the guardian to its dagger questioned by a growing rebellion. To its south lies a country of scholars, the mighty nation of Zenith, liberators of the War of Fire, and guardians of the amulet. Over the dividing wall lives the newly freed Sadi, a kingdom with an assassin for a prince and insurgents at its heels. The fourth is the ancient realm of Eve, the land across the sea, gifted and cursed with the sight, as it shows them what's to come. Only one knows the fate of the world, but all will be pawns in its reckoning. It's really good. It's really, really good. I will drop the link in chat, and I will make sure to drop her link to her YouTube, which is the other one I wanted to check. So I'll also put her YouTube, which is EB Novels, in chat. She does a lot of book reviews and analysis and discussion, and she finished book 1. So this is book 1. But it is, and she just has finished book 2, so, but she's kind of self-publishing these, so I probably wouldn't expect to see it for the end of this year. Maybe not to the beginning of next year. You know, layout, art. This is not a short book. And there's probably some draft edits that need to happen. But, firmly recommend, and you can order this actually from Barnes & Noble. I ordered this from Barnes & Noble, which is really great when that happens, when you can get, like, also look at this beautiful artwork that you kind of can get inside the book. And there's a map. Yes, and it's a linked map. I love a linked map. Like, look at this. Look at all of this. Civil war looms in the nation of Mysidia. The Lilus family rules, and Prince Roland is the current guardian of the Dagger of Eve. Many believe that the true leader of Mysidia belongs to the Victorian bloodline, though, and the slanders and maligns between each family only continue to intensify the pressure of carnage. The King of Peace, Gerard Varengard, is the ruler of the nation of Zenith. He is credited for ending the War of Fire, and has earned his name for maintaining the treaties and alliances throughout both the East and West. The royal family of Zenith holds the title of Guardian of the Amulet of Eve. Guinevere Vergard, Jared's oldest child, was bestowed the role after her mother Rose passed, giving birth to her brother Arden. And so it's a really, I love the fact that this is so interactive. There's a musical playlist and all of that kind of good stuff. I really, really enjoyed this book, and I am looking forward to book 2. I think that this is a really great introductory novel. It's not perfect. No novel is. But I really, really enjoyed it, and I think I think if you're willing to give it a shot, I think everyone else would be too. Also, who does not love that cover art? Like, oh, I love that art. There are so many, so many interesting things that are built into this, and you kind of have certain things that you think are true, but really aren't, because you're being played with in a really good way. And I think the Elliot Brooks does a really good job as an author, taking what your expectations are, playing within the genre, and then subverting them just a little bit, so it's just a little bit left of what you're expecting. I think that was a very good job. So yes, really support that. All right, and then the last book before we take our break, and then when we come back, we will do our read-along discussion, which will be spoiler-heavy. This is Dangerous Assassin by Elizabeth Wheatley. Go read this book. Hi. Book. Book. Read. Read this book. This is fantasy and romance in a way that's not romantasy, but done right. And yes, I have Coldrake. I told you there were a couple books I didn't enjoy Coldrake. There were books I didn't enjoy. Dangerous Assassin is not one of them. So, Elizabeth Wheatley sells all of her books through herself. You can go and order them on her website. I'll post the link. I'll pull it up right now. I'll pull that up right now. And I will post the link in chat for everybody. And when this goes up on YouTube, of course, it will be on the... So, Dangerous Assassin. Born to be a sorceress, cursed to be an assassin, chosen to be his empress. Magic has 2 immutable rules. Every spell requires a sacrifice, and every curse can be broken. Amira Brindanu is a sorceress turned assassin, bound in a curse that forces her to obey her father, even to the point of high treason. When he orders her to kill the future emperor, she fails, but discovers a secret that could bring the whole of the empire to its knees. The Archduke is stricken by a curse that could sentence him and his people to damnation, but Amira could be the only key to breaking it. In a desperate last-ditch effort, the Archduke takes Amira prisoner and makes a pact to protect her from her curse, if she will help free him of his own. As time begins to run out, Amira soon learns that there are enemies that blades can't touch, and there are fates worse than death. Caught in a web of sorcery, intrigue, and her growing feelings for the Archduke, the assassin must decide just how much she is willing to give to save the only man she's ever loved. Every curse can be broken, but can two cursed people save each other? This book. So I ordered book 1 because I didn't know if I was going to like it. And so book 1 came yesterday. It took a little while, which I was fine with because it's coming directly from the author. So book 1 came yesterday. I read this in 2.5 hours. It's also, just on 273 pages. I got to page 39 and read the following exchange and immediately stopped and had to go order the next 3 volumes. So this is a conversation. Phaedrid pulled her close. You didn't answer me. What happened to my horse? Amira cast her face in confusion. She didn't have to feign discomfort as several nearby courtiers took notice of his hand wrapped around her arm. Your horse, sir? Yes, the one you took. He gestured his cane at her. Right after you tried to kill my cousin, as you'll recall. Amira cocked her head to the side. My lord, I am quite confused. Yes, you want to see the Book Goblin merch? There's Book Goblin merch. My lord, I am quite confused. Phaedrid saw through her lie like gossamer. A ring on Phaedrid's left hand, the one gripping the cane, caught her attention. It was a signet bearing the imperial seal, or similar variation. She could feel the ka from Phaedrid's body coursing down and collecting in the ring. It wasn't hurting him, just capturing the excess so a sorceress couldn't use it. She swallowed. He'd come prepared. Even if her father hadn't commanded her not to harm anyone in the Archduke's retinue, even if she'd known spells to fight him, her spells would be useless against him. Phaedrid nodded in satisfaction when he noticed her attention on his ring. Yes, your magic is useless on me, and I doubt you'll be fighting in that dress. And this is the line that had me stop and go and order the next 3 books in this series. How like a man to assume he was safe because she wore skirts. Like, I had to stop and be like, oh, that's the level of snark we're dealing with. We're gonna go read. I'm gonna go get the rest of the series. And then there were a couple other points that I was like, oh my god, like you can tell, like I flagged a bunch of places in this book. Nothing that would be. And this is when Daedrith, by the way, is the emperor, or well, the Archduke, who's the crown prince of the empire. He will be emperor, right? So Daedrith glanced to the cut on her cheek and the welt forming on her temple. Oh, wait, hold on. I should back up because this is actually kind of hilarious. Without waiting for her to respond, he continued, Who struck first, you or the queen? Amira was a little surprised he chose that to start. She inhaled. I did. Daedrith glanced to the cut on her cheek and the welts forming on her temple. Hey, Hawkeye, welcome in. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Hawkeye, for coming in with your raiders. I appreciate you coming over, bringing your crew. It is Saturday night. And we ain't got nobody. We're sitting here chatting about books. Yep, yep, yep. There we go. Glad we had some great matches. That was good. But I'm talking about Daedrith's Assassin. Oh, Hawkeye, I think Bonnie would like this book. I think Bonnie would like this book. Just saying. Ooh, Baron and Baroness of the Keep. That's good. Alright, so without waiting for her to respond, he continued, "Who struck first, you or the queen?" Amira was a little surprised he chose that to start. She inhaled. "I did." Dangerous glanced to the cut on her cheek and the welt forming at her temple. "If you'd struck first, your stepmother would never have had the chance to strike back." I'm like, this series, I am here for it. All of it. I am not going to read any of these other flagged ones. And this book is full of quips, and it's really interesting characters. And one of the points that the author, Elizabeth Wheatley, you can go follow her on Instagram. She's really, really witty and funny and has some very interesting conversations about books and her writing process and all of those things. And I really, really appreciate her for that. But one of the things I appreciate is that she describes this book as Daedrith is a hero in the vein of Faramir or Aragorn, right? Like, sweet cinnamon roll, good man who's trying to do good things, and Amira is like, I was trained and turned into an assassin by my father because I literally cannot say no to him. And I'm forced to obey him. So Amira is an assassin, and Daedrith is like a truly good man who is trying to do the best thing for his empire that he can. And they have also, this is an actual true enemies to lovers situation, because not only does she try to kill him because her father forced her to, but also her mother's people are the sorceresses who have been exiled and were mostly murdered by his father. Like, there's a bit of political tension involved in their relationship. And I had to go immediately stop, and like I said, I got to page 39, read this line where she says, "How like a man to assume he was safe because she wore skirts." And you're like, I need the rest of this series. I can't. It's gonna take a few days for it to get here. I'm going to have to wait. Also, because it's a independent author, came with a very nice bookmark, and all of the books for the currently out, well, all of the books, and I put there's also like a little, can you see that? Is it gonna focus? You see that little seal right there? She wrapped the book and had the seal, and it's a very nice touch. It was very, very well done. I did a whole, if you go on my Instagram, Prax the Bard over on Instagram, I did a whole unboxing of the book. But yeah, Hawkeye, I think you would enjoy it too, but I also think that Bonnie would really enjoy this. I don't know. If Bonnie likes fantasy, I think she would enjoy it. But it's also really interesting because the setting isn't what you'd expect from a traditional high fantasy set in like a medieval world, but it's actually much more late 16th, early 17th century, Austro-Hungarian kind of Holy Roman Empire, France under Versailles, like all of these little things combined, and just the right level of storytelling. Also, Phaedrid is one of my favorite characters of all time. I'm seriously hoping nothing bad happens to Phaedrid. Side character. Of course they're my favorite. They're probably going to die because that's my favorite character and that's what happens. But I don't know yet because I don't have the rest of the books. But I hope to get them soon. Yes, like there's you were technologically advanced. There's hot and cold running water in the palace. Um, and it's a very interestingly built world, described world. The way the magic works is very, again, cost, and there's a cost to all of the magic that happens in this world. Uh, and Amira has never officially been trained as a sorceress. Like, there, the backstory deals with her mother and her people who are all sorceresses and like sorcerers, and but the majority of them are, it's a female matrilineal society, and the sorceresses are end up exiled, and there's a rebellion, and they end up exiled and they go away, and she's left behind with her father, who's the king of one of these kingdoms that's conquered by this emperor, right? And he basically bastardizes her. Gets remarried to a perfectly socially acceptable woman from within his own kingdom that's, you know, has, or from within a neighboring kingdom that has ties to the new imperial overlords, has a new wife, has a new daughter and a couple other kids, and like, yeah, this is unfortunately my my daughter, but not a princess of this realm. Like, it's so interesting and very complex, and you're like, all of the people, like, do I hate her father? I have very complicated feelings about her father. I don't like him, but I think he's a really, really great character. And then Vesha, who is the Empress Regent, who is Dangereth's mother, is like, as Amira says, you don't. She is well known for being, Amira's like, she's well known for all of her charity and being popular with the people and all of these things, but she's like, but you don't be a woman ruling after your husband, the emperor, dies, when your son is a kid. You're like maybe 10 when his father dies, and you maintain stability for this empire that your husband did a lot of the conquering for like 18 years without doing some things that perhaps are not nice, shall we say. I think it's a really interesting kind of like that all of the characters are complex and all of them have motivations and desires, and you see where they're coming from, and you can empathize with them. And then you have to ask that question of like, oh, I understand why you're doing what you're doing, but I don't think what you're doing is good. I think it's a little on the bad side. Or really on the bad side. Like, maybe you're the villain? So, the next 3 books in the series, so all of the books in the series are out now in e-form on Elizabeth Wheatley's website. The first 4 books are in paperback, and Dangerous Empress is releasing at the end of the month on paperback, I think. So, or next month on paperback. Also, fun fact, Elizabeth Wheatley does all of her own audiobooks. So she is publishing and printing and doing her own recordings for the audiobooks. Also, not for nothing, I appreciate the fact that this is a case where the ebook and the physical book, there is a price differential, and the ebook is less expensive. And I understand that and respect that. I'm not a big fan of when they're the same price. Like, I get that they can't always be, like, they shouldn't be, like, vastly different. But there is a cost of manufacture that isn't there, so they don't think they should be the same price. That's just me. But yes, I am very much looking forward to A, probably rereading this, because I can, and B, reading the rest of the series. Um, I think it'll be very well done and really enjoyable. Also, wait, where's that line? Power was like climbing a mountain. The higher you ascended, the farther you could fall, and the more people began wishing for your fall. The trick was to tie as many people to you as possible so that if you did fall, you would take them down with you. That, in principle, made people watch out for your best interests. Like, Amira is such an interesting character, and I can't wait to find out more about her and her history. All of these things I'm very interested to read more about and find out more about. So, that is all of the books that I have read. Well, that's not true. We still have the books that we'd read for the read along, but those are going to be spoiler heavy discussions, and we're going to take a break first, stretch, bio, do all of those good things, and then when we come back, we're going to have a spoiler heavy discussion of Red Rising by Pierce Brown and The Templar's Legacy by Stephen Barry, because those are the two books we read for the read along for this month. So why don't you go ahead and I'll see you in a little bit, everybody. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hope you are refreshed, you stretched, you bioed, you did all of those good things, and now we can dive into the spoiler territory for our, what is the word I'm looking for? Community read-along for this. And my hair looks oh so blessedly horrible right now, but it's a thing that's gonna happen. But we read 2 books for this month for community read along. So now we are here. We are in spoiler territory. The spoiler tag is up. I will be talking about these books in depth, and they are Pierce Brown's Red Rising, Volume 1 in the Red Rising trilogy, which has grown from being a trilogy to much more, and then Templar Legacy, which is the first book in Steve Barry's Cotton Malone series, which is a thriller kind of series, history mystery thriller. It's interesting. But so I guess the first question I get to ask everybody is, feel free to participate in chat, highlight things in chat, mention things in chat, and also if you watch this on YouTube, hi, thanks, I really appreciate you over there, and I really appreciate all of your support. And leave comments in chat in the below as well. So we should start with what I think is going to be the slightly easier book to talk about, and that is Pierce Brown's Red Rising. This book, hi, content warning, and the content warning is all of the horrible things. Okay? Like, all of it. Just murder, and then some more murder, and unfortunately sexual assault, and other things, and then murder, and horribly oppressive class systems, that are caste systems, and horribly, interpretations of, forced slavery, and, various other things that are not good. Like, a lot of what happens in this book is not good. And there is the very real question that I want to pose to the chat. Do you like Darrow as a character? I'm not asking if you think he's a good guy or a bad guy. Like, that's a complicated question. I am asking simply, did you like Darrow as the character? Because for me, Darrow is interesting. Like, I don't know that like is the word I would use for me to compare. Like, yeah, like, is this a character you love to hate? Like, I don't know, because it's dark. Like, and then you sit and you, like, it took me a while because I had forgotten, right? Like, I had read this book series a long time ago, and like, I remember the story, and that's why I'm doing a reread before we get to the book, the most recent book, which was released in December of 2023. So a month ago from the time of me filming this, or from this discussion. And I had remembered the series, I remembered all the plot points, I remembered all the discussions. What I had forgotten is at the start of the book, Darrow is 16. Darrow is 16 at the start of this book. And, like, a lot of bad things happen to him. And then he does a lot of bad things within a very, very bad system in an attempt to work with the Sons of Ares, who are supposed to be working to overthrow the system or bring about its end. Like, I don't think Darrow even knows what the end goal is beyond his high. Okay, rewind. Darrow, member of the Red Caste, lowest caste, never seen the sun, grown up as basically a mining slave, and doesn't even know that the surface of Mars has been colonized and terraformed for generations. Like, has no idea that this is a thing, doesn't even know that the entire world politics and intergalactic politics are different, has no idea of what is actually happening, right? Like, it isn't, oh, that's what was bothering, okay, just is not aware of the reality of the situation that the rest of the people are in, because he's not allowed to be. And when he falls in with, I think is the best way to phrase it, these rebels, they're like, yes, you want vengeance and justice for the bad things that these people did to you and the oppression that you suffered. So we're going to turn you into one of their children and send you off to this super exclusive academy that will turn you into one of their upper caste, and then you can become like promoted to being like a ruler, a captain of a ship and commander of a fleet, and then like you're in a position to help take over. And you're like, Darrow is not in a place at the beginning of at that particular point in the book, I don't think, to actually make it I mean, he has no consent in this situation. Like, he literally expected to be dead and woke up and was like, oh, you're all rebels. Okay. What do you want me to do? Okay. And then he's like, okay, so I've got to achieve this goal of getting into this position of power so that I can eventually take down the system from within. But he doesn't have any, at this point in the like in the beginning of this plan, he doesn't have like any overarching goal of how to do that. Yeah, he's like, yeah, he's asking, Kolchak says, asking a lot from a kid, basically trying to turn him into those 50 Soviet plants. Like, yeah, but at this, like, same time, it's even worse than that, because, like, he has to undergo massive reconstructive surgery to pass off as one of these genetically superior high caste golds, right? Like, it's not just that he has to be able to talk like them, walk like them, know all of the history that they know all of the art and literature and all of this. There's actual physical evolutionary differences that he needs to undergo massively painful multiple medical treatments to achieve, to be able to infiltrate this school, right? And like, school I'm using in quotation marks because this is not a school. This is a culling ground. That's what this is. This is straight up a culling of the best of the best, so that only the absolute 1% can then go on to achieve greatness. And you're like, oh my god, there are so many people dead at the end of this book. Like, so many people dead at the end of this book. Yeah, Koldrake, it's exactly like that. And like, not for nothing, at the end of this book, Darrow is in a position where he has achieved his initial goal, or the rebel cell's initial goal of getting him one of these apprenticeships. And then taking it a step further, because of how he gains that goal, he draws the attention of the arch governor of the planet, who Darrow personally wants to murder the fuck out of. Like, he wants to murder the hell out of him. For pretty legitimate reasons, actually. But he is in a position where he understands that politically it would be to his benefit to hold off and play the game and take the position as the adopted son of the arch-governor, a guy he hella wants to murder, because it will play better on his long-term plan. And I don't think he even knows what his plan is yet, beyond destroy the system. Like, he's got a goal. I don't think he has a plan. He doesn't even have actionable steps at the moment. A lot of people say this is a YA novel. I'm like, I don't even think this is a YA novel. I don't think so. I think this is a really good science fiction novel. I think it's a very interesting look at how an oligarchical society could develop in a post interstellar period way, how all of that plays out. I also think it's a really interesting character development position for Darrow, but I don't think this is a young adult novel, because even Darrow doesn't think of himself as a young adult, right? Like, he does in most young adult novels. There's this understanding that the main character, while being in the 13 to 18-year-old range at the beginning of the book series, is somehow still a minor, quote unquote. You know, even if they become the main character, they're still young according to the rules of the own society within the book. Darrow doesn't see himself that way, right? Like, at the beginning of the book, he's married, he's been a hell diver for 3 years. He's views himself as an adult, as a fully formed adult, and his society views him that way. A young adult, but views him as an adult. And then when he leaves the mining colony and like the mine shafts, and then goes topside and starts interacting with these elite snobs that are all these golds that he will have to endure for the rest of this series. He very much sees a developmental difference between him and them. And he self-identifies more with the adults in the narrative, even when he acknowledges that he doesn't know everything and that there are people who know more information than he does, and he wants to get access to that information by taking advantage of the people who have that information. He still doesn't view himself as a child or a young adult. He views himself as an adult. Someone whose own abilities are to be respected. And I think that's one of the quintessential reasons why I would say this is not a young adult novel, regardless of what age Darrow is when the book starts. People are like, oh, well, it's also like, it's a military academy book series, and I'm like, yeah, but no, because it's not really an academy, it's a culling ground, right? Like, it's a straight up culling ground. And he's not really learning, I mean, he kind of is, but really most of what he's learning is how to rule a population that believes that they all should be rulers, and how he can manipulate the situation as both an outsider and as an insider. And I think he's learning, and he is learning something from this experience, but I don't think he is, I wouldn't call this a a military school novel by any means. Um, Interestingly enough, when I was rereading this, one of the things that came to mind is that there is a current darling of the social media book sphere called Fourth Wing, and its sequel Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, that is all about this. It's a romantic fantasy novel. It's all about this going to this elitist military academy, and anybody could kill you at any time, and there are dragons, and it's not until you bond with the dragon that you're really safe, and blah blah blah. And it's like, oh my god, am I gonna die? And I'm like, I haven't read the whole book. I have not read the book. I have not read the book. I have heard multiple excerpts and multiple reviews from multiple people, and I decided that and I picked up the book in like Barnes and Noble and read the first page and was like, this is not a book for me. There are plenty of people for whom it is a positive audience book. Like you can have that as your audience. There is an audience for that book, and good for them. They can enjoy it. However, of the like snippets that I have read because of people's reviews, or they're talking about certain scenes and they're talking about, oh my god, you know, she could die, we have to practice fighting in this classes and all of these things, and I'm like, I don't feel any concern for Violet as the main character in Fourth Wing from any of the excerpts I've read. Darrow I actually felt concern for. Like, there's a legitimate points in this book where you're like, I know I've read this book before. I've read this entire series before. I know he survives, but there's still a tension about like, oh, he could get seriously messed up. There are like characters you're like, oh, do I want them to survive? I don't know. They're kind of part of the oppressive ruling class that is horrible, horrible people, but at the same time, oh my god, this is really horribly, horribly dark, and they could seriously die in a horrible way. And oh my god, a couple of them do die in a very horribly way, and Darrow feels the impact of that. Like, we know in this book that Darrow still sees a majority of these people, sees the majority of these people as enemies, and he is in enemy territory and undercover. But at the same time, he also starts, because he can't avoid it, and he knows he can't avoid it, bonding with a number of them because of A, trauma bonding, and B, just he starts to see a few of them as individuals, and he's like, oh, this is gonna suck when I have to kill you. Maybe I won't have to. And Coldrake's like, you are making me think you're a pro Darrow fan. I'm not an anti-Darrow. Like, I don't know that I like him. I don't know that, but I think he is an interesting character. And that's what I like. I am a person who will read a lot of books and be like, I'm not supposed to like this character. This character is not a good person. But I am like the way the character is written. I like their character arc. I like their development and think they are a good character, not a good person. And I think those are two different things. For example, I also really, really like if I'm going to talk about one of my favorite books of all time, it's Les Mis. Yes, I read it in English and in French. I love the character of Javert. I think he's beautifully complex and interestingly written. He is also a great not villain. of that book. He is not the villain of the book. Javert is, if anyone comes at you and says that Javert is the villain of Les Mis, just turn around and walk away, because they don't understand the book. You have a lot in this particular volume of that kind of same thing. I don't like what Darrow does, but I love following his progression. And then there are people in this book who you full on hate. Like, oh, I want to hate you so much. And then Darrow kills them, and you're like, well, that was cathartic. And then there are people like, oh, Darrow, you're going to murderize the fuck out of him, aren't you? Oh, no, you're not. You're going to do something else that's even worse. Okay. All right. I see what you did there. Kind of, in a way. So, I don't think I like Darrow as a person. I think I like Darrow as a character. But what is your take on Darrow, for those of you who read the book and joined me in this narrative experiment? I get the impression that Coldrake is a not Darrow fan, is an anti-Darrow. But does anybody else have any opinions or thoughts about the main character in this very bloody mess that is Red Rising? Put that over there for right now. Coldrake says, I have yet to make a final conclusion, and I think that's fair. Like, I think Darrow is a character, and again, I've read this series before, so this is a reread for me. I think Darrow, now that I've read through the entire series, I think Darrow is a character that you don't actually make an opinion on until you've followed his entire progression of murder, and more murder, and death, and, yeah. And see where he ends up at the end of the book and the end of the series, because I think that's an important part of him. What were your general impressions of the book? Having finished it again for the second time, I think it was an enjoyable reread, and I definitely have come back to it 10 years later, and it's a very different read 10 years later. The world is in a very interesting place 10 years later than the politics were at the time that I first read the book. And it was a little like, moments of reading in certain places in this book about the world state, what happens, how you get to this position of this very caste-driven society, and the expansion out into the stars that happens because of it, or is facilitated by that caste system. Excuse me. So yeah, I think I'm really going to enjoy rereading the series. I think I definitely have an opinion about. Right now I'm have a couple questions that I'm thinking through in my head, because what I think of the Son of Ares and whether they're actually this freedom fighters group that they say they are. I mean, like, I know, but at the same time, there are certain things like, that could be interesting to rethink and refocus on, like, how they're described. and reread the books in a way that I pay attention to how they're described by both Darrow and other people. And because I know things, because I've read the series before, I want to see, it'll be really good to see, I think. But overall, a really, really solid read. And I think it held up. Again, originally published... Yeah, originally published 2013, so literally 10 years ago. It was the first time I read this book. And I love that the description on the back is reminiscent of the Hunger Games and Game of Thrones. I'm like, okay, you're not inherently wrong, but there's a lot more to it than that. And I think I'm going to enjoy reading book 2, Golden Sun, which will be for February. Read Golden Sun, and then at the end of February we'll talk about that one. And because there's some interesting things that happen with Darrow in that second book, and I think it will be really interesting now, seeing where the world state is and seeing what happened in this book, and then going to see what happens in the second book. But yes, that is my opinion of Red Rising. If you have any comments or thoughts or questions about what you read about in the book, throw them in chat, and we'll definitely talk about them. But shifting gears to something with slightly less murder. Slightly. There's still a shit ton of murder in this. But somehow not as graphic. More pointed murder. This is The Templar Legacy by Steve Berry. I got it from my local library. My local library has all of the Steve Berry books, which is great because I will probably read them all through the library. This is the first book in the Cotton Malone series. This is again a reread for me. And I was reminded again of how much I enjoy Steve Berry's writing style. It is an older novel. It's one of his first. I think it's and it's from 2006. So this book is 27 years old. 28 years old. And or 18, sorry. 18 years old. 18 years old. Not 20. 18. I can do math, everybody. So this is not one of them love novels. Correct. No, this is a historical thriller, or a thriller based on a historical mystery. There we go. And I really appreciate Steve Berry's writing style. I appreciate the pacing, the character development, the choices that are made, and this particular novel focuses on, it's the first volume with Cotton Malone in it. He has 3 other books that kind of came out before this. So this is his 4th book that he wrote and published. He is a very, very good about asking a question and then where that question goes. Like, starting with the question, and in this case the question is, okay, what happened to all of the stuff that was in the temple of the Knights Templar in Paris in 1359 when the Pope declared them heretics and the French King Philip II proceeded to murder, torture them and burn them as heretics. But when they finally went in to seize all of the property that the Templars were holding, and this is all historical fact, the vast wealth of the Templars wasn't in Paris. Like, it's not there. Nobody knows where it was. It is, like, there's accounts of the King of France being like, motherfuckers, where is all of this gold? I was relying, because that's the point. Philip, the King of France, was relying on the Pope in Avignon. So, the Pope in the Avignon captivity, Clement the Fifth, I believe. Is it Clement the Fifth or Clement the Sixth? It's a Clement. It's one of the two. Was relying on Clement to declare them as heretics so that he could, or it's Philip the Fourth of France, and it's 1307. Sorry, I was off by a number of years. It's October 1307 is when the Templars are destroyed. And he was relying on Clement IV to declare them heretics so that the King of France could go in and take all of their gold and all of their property, because he was broke and he was an idiot and didn't know how to run any money. And when he walks into the temple, he's like, motherfuckers, where's all this money? He can't find it. Yeah, so, but Coldrake, the problem with that theory, so Coldrake mentions a theory that is a very prominent theory about this particular question. One theory has the ship carrying the gold from the Middle East sinking just a half mile or a mile out of port. The problem is, we know, okay, so the big reason that history first, and then we'll go into the actual plot of the book, because the book is really, really good. So the history is, we know that the Knights Templar, and I'm blanking on their actual title, I could pull it up because it's in this book. It is, The Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ in the Temple of Solomon was their official title. Those were the Knights Templar. We know that they were in Jerusalem. They eventually begin work there. While they're there, they also are warrior knights, and they're actually very elite soldiers. And they take vows of poverty and swear true fealty to the Pope above all. And one of the things that ends up happening is they actually end up becoming effectively the banking system for Europe at the time, because all of the European kings would be sending all of their, and the nobles would be moving their wealth through the Knights Templar and having the Knights Templar act as bodyguards and caretakers for this wealth moving across Europe and to Jerusalem, or to support any of these things. They were also, they lose their official, when Jerusalem is taken by the Saracens and the Ottomans, Osman the First, they then go to Cyprus, not Malta. They go to Cyprus, and their headquarters are in Cyprus for 150 years. And then they go to Paris, and they're in Paris, and there are a number of these mother houses, these chapter houses throughout Europe, and they're in Paris, and they have a large amount of money in the chapter house in Paris. And when the Pope declares them heretics, the vast majority of, a large number of them are captured, a large number of them are tortured and killed. But a vast majority of them are not. Nobody knows where they went. An even bigger thing is, their money is just gone. Nobody knows where it is. And it's not just physical wealth, but documents and letters of inheritance and marriage records, and because they were acting as the banks for Europe, right? Like, so everything you would today put into a bank safety deposit box, they were where these nobles were stashing this stuff. So letters of inheritance, wills, letters of marque, IOUs, like all of this is just in the Templars' care and nobody knows where it is. Yeah, like, so you wouldn't have to carry cash. You could just deal with the night. You could go to your local chapter house in whatever country, and they would then write you a letter of cash, like a check of value, a letter of value, and when you take that to uh, um, Jerusalem, you could then draw that money from the Knights Templar in Jerusalem. So yes, October 13th, Friday, October 13th, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people have this comment about Friday the 13th being bad luck. Friday, exactly, Coldrake. It's why Friday the 13th is considered a unlucky day, because, and from all accounts, it seems like Jacques, what's his full name? I don't want to mess it up because he is actually a really important person. Jacques de Molay, Jacques de Molay, who is the commander of the Knights Templar in Paris, knows that something's happening, right? Because like Philip has come to them previously seeking safety from the mob because he's can't pay people to eat, and they help him out the first time around. And so Philip then arrests so many of them, but not all of them are taken. It becomes a very interesting thing, and then eventually they're executed as heretics. Leo X and a couple other of the 20th century popes rescind that order. Well, actually, Clement V rescinds the order that they were heretics, or Clement VI does it, and then Leo apologizes for it and grants papal indulgences and blessings upon all of the who were executed as and excommunicated. And a lot of people point out the fact that this is during, the reason that this happened is this happens during the Avignon captivity, right? Like a period of time when there are two popes. There's a pope in Rome and then there's a pope in Avignon. Because the pope in Rome, in the Vatican, multiple popes ago, there was a fear that he would be captured by the Franks and the Visigoths. And so he escapes to Avignon. And now you've got two centers of religious power kind of vying with each other. There's the building of the palace of the Pope Clement IV in Avignon, and he's there. And one of the things I really liked in this book is the talk about like what they're caught. One of the characters, Mark, asks Cotton, you know, what do you, or not Mark, Clarendon asks Cotton it's Mark. Mark asks Clarendon, or Mark asks Cotton, what do you notice that's missing in this palace of Pope Clement? And his answer is God. Because this Avignon Pope, it's not about him being the voice of God or the representative of the Holy Mother Church and therefore about God. It's all about him as a political figure. It's all about Clement as a political figure, as a military, as a secular ruler, right? Like, as I am the wealthiest man in the world, I am the most powerful man in the world, whatever. So there are these two fighting power dynamics between Rome and Avignon. And the Templars are a group, a religious order that have sworn true fealty to the Pope. And now you've got this tension going on. So Clement feels like, ooh, I need that money. But I also want, Philip, the theory is that Philip manipulates Clement, and Clement is kind of open to it because there's this possibility of the dual popes, and that Philip played on Clement's fear that the Templars would be more loyal to Rome than to him. Basically ends up, the two of them conspire to murder all of the, declare unholy rites, and that there are lots of dead. Yeah, and then there's like arguments about like they were worshiping idols, and it's very, very interesting. So this book deals with that question, right? Like, the question that is posed in this book is, what happened to all that gold? And Steve Barry does a fabulous job of taking what facts are known and the historical searches that have happened throughout history, particularly dealing with Abbé Berenger Saunier and Rennes le Chateau, and just going off of a lot of this analysis that this is the history. These are the questions we don't have any answer for. I'm going to play in here with this question and use what we do know from history to create an answer that's this is a possible answer for this mystery. It is not the answer, but it is a possible answer based on the facts that we do know. And he is very, very good at taking this character of Cotton Malone, who I am thoroughly enjoying. Again, it is almost like seating for the Spanish Inquisition, Coldrake. It was very much an obvious. Let's take political blame on a population center, a group of people who have a lot of money, and we want their money for political reasons and less because of religious ones. And if you don't think that's why a bunch of the Spanish Inquisition targeted a bunch of Jewish people in Spain, I have some serious stories to tell you. But for going back to the book, so Cotton Malone is a very interesting figure because he is this investigator. He was a naval criminal and, naval officer, and then he goes to the Justice Department, and he was working as an undercover agent attached to the Justice Department, and something bad happens, and he retires. And as he retires, he gets invited by a guy who is, we've jumped from the real history to the book. Hi, we're going to the book so that we can talk about more history again. So Cotton Malone is a character who is in works for the Justice Department, and then he retires, and he gets hired by, oh god, I always forget this guy's name. Because he's one of the most interesting characters that kind of comes up in this Cotton Malone series. And he is Thorvald. There we go. He's a Dane who's a very, very wealthy man, but he's in Copenhagen. And so when Cotton retires, he gets invited to come, like, there's a whole bit of backstory about, like, Thorvald's son, who is this rising star in Danish diplomacy, ends up being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and is a casualty of a drive-by assassination in Mexico City that Cotton witnessed but was not able to prevent. However, Cotton, being the very efficient agent for the Justice Department that he is, proceeds to kill a bunch of people that were attempting to do this assassination. And Thorvald is basically like, you should come back to Copenhagen, and you tried to save my son, and I understand that you couldn't do that. but you did the best you could, and you may not have been able to save my son, but you sure as hell avenged him. And he basically, Cotton opens a bookstore, an antique bookstore in Copenhagen. And the premise of the book, the premise of the starting incident of this book, is that Cotton's old boss, Stephanie Nels, has come to Copenhagen on the trail of an antique book that her husband, who had died previously under mysterious circumstances, was looking for as a reference in Lars Nels's, Stephanie's dead husband's, attempt to find the Templar treasures and attempt to find this. And through that, Cotton is like, one, why are you here? This is a little strange. Oh, this is going to be fun. I'm going to have to go back to work. But also, it's about the book, right? Like, the book is the inciting incident. And one of the things that I love best is at the end of this book, Steve Berry puts an entire section where he talks about the actual history and where his sources are, where he stretches history, or there is no actual fact that that has been included, so he can kind of tweak it a little bit. But he references the fact that this book keeps being referenced by multiple people, but no one has ever seen a copy of it. And so it's an actual historical possible book, but nobody's ever seen it. And so that becomes the reason why Cotton gets involved in this situation. And then once Cotton's involved in this situation, it becomes we're going to find this Templar legacy. And in doing so, again, spoiler tags are up, you find out the Templars are still around, just not in the same kind of way they were. And so there's a divide between certain members of the Templars who don't want this secret to come out and kind of want to stay away from the, operations of everyday world, and kind of like slowly introduce themselves back, but kind of be slightly separate. And other people who are like, no man, we should totally get revenge for the Catholic Church and the government of France murderizing all of us in 1307. Hi, remember how I said that the Templars were warrior knights and were considered elite warrior knights and warrior monks at the time? Do you think that 700 years later that was really gonna go away? So it makes it very, very interesting, both political drama within the Templar order itself, but also with the history of the politics involved outside, right? Like, of all the people who, are going on. The Knights of Malta are technically not the same thing as the Knights Templar. The Knights of Malta may have begun, again, this is in the actual Knights of Malta is an actual religious order. They still exist. They're one of the few, like the Knights of Columbus. They're also a social group you can join. You don't have to be our order. You don't have to be a religious member. You can be a layperson member of the Knights of Malta. And a large number of Italians, and like the Knights of Columbus and the Knights of Malta, big things. Side note, the Knights of Malta are really kind of big in the area where I live in Connecticut, and they have what is called Malta House, and it is one of the few charities that I actually kind of appreciate. It's an example of the Catholic Church putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to the issue of abortion. Malta House is a charity organization and home run by the Knights of Malta and based purely on fundraising and donation that provides housing and care and support for underage and single mothers. If the mother, and pregnancies, if the mother chooses, they help arrange for an adoption while providing medical care for the entire pregnancy. And if the mother does not wish to give the child up for adoption, they provide medical care, education, getting them, helping these women get jobs, helping them find affordable housing, and child care for the entire first year of the kid's life, so that the mom can actually get a good stability under her to get the in this way. And while I may not agree with everything, I do think that that is, you know, if you're going to say, Catholic Church, that you are anti-abortion, you have to provide that kind of support and do it right. So the Knights of Malta are still a thing. There is rumors that the original Knights of Malta were members of the Knights Templar, like who escaped and survived. I don't know that's ever actually been confirmed publicly. There's also been rumors that the reason the founding of the Knights Malta could happen is because the Knights Templar who escaped left Cyprus and went to Malta with money that they had and founded a new order while hiding as Knights Hospitalier. Because that's the other thing, is right, like the other big order of knights at the time was the Knights religious order was the Knights Hospitalier. So as far as I am aware, there has never been a public confirmation or actual, like, we can prove that this founding member of the Knights of Malta was affiliated in some way with the actual Knights Templar before they were destroyed in 1307. I know that there have been a lot of rumor and speculation, but I've never seen an actual, like, yes, this is this. So, according to history, the Knights Templar died in 1307. Well, technically up to 1310, because a bunch of people escaped and were then hunted down and were, you know, declared heretics. But, effectively 1307. So, the book follows Cotton and Stephanie on this journey to kind of, like, piece together the clues that her husband did have, as well as the clues that they can find out from this other book and other pieces that existed, and try and use that to find where the Knights Templar money is. And one of the things you find out is the reason, is I think it's a really brilliant thing that happens in this book, is the antagonist is a Knight Templar, and he has the opinion that they should have total revenge. It's like, fine. One of the things that I think works really, really well in this book is, well, you have to stop and think, is like, okay, well, if you survived, why do you care about this gold hunt, right? You know where this is. No, they still, because the way the Knights Templar was functioned and set up, in 1307, when the vast head of their leadership are executed for heresy and murdered, let's go with murdered, because I kind of think it was murder using religious rhetoric to do so. They knew certain secrets that other people didn't know, including where this actually was. So certain pieces of their, like, archives would have, you know, did survive, but certain other pieces, like where the majority of this money went, they don't know either. So they're also looking for it. And it's a kind of cat and mouse kind of game. Now, Coldrake makes the comparison between this and the Da Vinci Code. And yes, this book came out very similar in time frame to the Da Vinci However, one of the things I have said publicly, and I will say again, the reason I prefer Steve Barry as a writer for this kind of fiction, right? Like this fiction that begins with a historical mystery, and you're going to allow a character in a fictional manner to solve that mystery. He has an entire section, like, there is this entire, you get to the end of the book, you figure out what the end of the, Mark is going to do, and then there's a writer's note. There's there's 4 pages of writer's notes that goes basically chapter by chapter, talking about each of the actual historical points, giving you his references and telling where he got his facts from, and then telling you, yes, this is not true and this is where I can find it. My big problem with the Da Vinci Code and Dan Brown is he's very fast and loose with the history that he does use, and then on top of that, in the Da Vinci Code, it is Catholic Church bad. That's it. Like, that sums up the entire thing. This book doesn't excuse the Catholic Church, like, does not blame the entire Catholic Church. Does point out that there were certain people in power at the time who were a problem. Does point out that there are certain people who are... does point out that there are certain people at the time who were a problem and were using it for political gain. Does point out that that there are individuals who take advantage of the system, and uses that to highlight the fact that there are good and bad. Like, it's an individual question, right? Like, it's about people, and I love that because it's much more down to earth. Coltrick says, to be honest, Dan Brown wrote 2 books before Da Vinci Code using the same format. Da Vinci Code finally got polished enough, to be a decent read. Not great, but decent. Yeah, like, this is not Lord of the Rings by any means, but it's a really great kind of adventure, kind of mystery story. It's takes the facts that are there, and Steve Barry was a lawyer, right? Like, so he was a lawyer in Atlanta, and one of the things that he, because of that, he's really good at the research. He can do the research and looks at the research and goes, okay, these is historical things, and I can play with what we don't know, or what could be a maybe, but I can't play with the actual physical history. And I think he makes a point of saying, like, there's only one thing he makes a point of moving one event. Okay, and he makes a very interesting point. The Abbey de Fontaine is fictional, but is largely based on bits and pieces from many Pyrenees retreats. The locales in Denmark all exist. The cathedral at Roskilde and Christian IV's crypt in Chapter 5 are truly magnificent, and the view from the Round Tower in Copenhagen, Chapter 1, does in fact harken back to another century. It's like, he is very precise about what facts he can use and where he's getting his sources, and where he's like, no, this is just straight up fiction. And I think my biggest problem with the Da Vinci Code is that Dan Brown doesn't want to do that very well. He wants to have the reader read the book, enjoy the book, and then come out of it with conspiracy theories. And Steve Barry, reading this book, you read the book, you ask questions, and he wants you to go research more about the actual history involved in this situation but not the conspiracy theories. Like, he's like, yes, the cryptograms are part of a big thing. It's part of this mystery. It's an actual fact. I changed the ones that are there because I thought this is what I needed to actually get to an end. No one has actually ever solved these cryptograms, if they can be, right? Like, it's very kind of straightforward. This is fact. This is fiction. You want to know more about this fact? Here are my resources. Go read more about this fact. Every interview, discussion, experience I see with Dan Brown is he almost believes his own conspiracy theories, and he's very inaccurate with the history that he's playing with, which is even worse. You're like, I can't watch the Da Vinci Code because it relies on I can't even read the book, but the parts that I'm going to talk about are also in the movie. It relies on 4 facts that he claims are vitally important, and I'm like, you're working off of having Da Vinci be in places that we know he physically wasn't, right? Like, big chunks of the Da Vinci Code require Leonardo da Vinci to have been in Paris, or excuse me, not in Paris, in Avignon and in Rome when he just wasn't. He was in Paris at the time. We know this. He is the court artisan for the King of France. Like, oh, well, he took a vacation. Or how do you know he wasn't there? I'm like, because the man wrote down all of his life. Like, when the inaccuracies are that big, it becomes a problem. This book relies on the holes in history and then taking what facts we do have and trying to create a narrative to fill the hole, not create a new one. Which is why I like Steve Berry as a writer. I also think he writes action much better. I think his villains are more intriguing. I like Cotton Malone a lot better as a character. Can we get him a TV deal? Like, I would watch this nice guy, complicated situation. I also really enjoyed... Oh, PB! Thank you for that resub. I appreciate you for that. Yes, this was a great... the overlay was a commission from Artificer Zero, which we finally got his Zero's correct handle figured out so I could give him a shout out. And I think he did a fabulous job. And it looks really great and professional. I appreciate it. Also, I love the fact that he did these as all individual assets, so if I want to use them on different things, it's great. Thanks. But, what was I saying? Oh, so one of the other things I really like about this book is the diversity of cast asking certain questions about what the Templars are going to do. So Cotton Malone is nominally Christian / Catholic. He, by the way, has gotten a divorce from his wife because he finally came home after being deployed for too many times, and she's like, we just don't know each other anymore, and you want to go fuck off to Copenhagen? I'm good. I'll stay in Atlanta, thanks. And then Stephanie is Catholic. Lapsed, but complicated feelings about being Catholic. One of the two other Thorvald is Jewish and a very engaged, philanthropic Jew in Europe at the time. And then the other character who we meet, who is also doing one of the most interesting projects in this book, where she is funding the recreation of a southern French castle by having people use actual building materials and methods and all of this by and she in the southern France, and it's based on an actual and like an actual project. Where is it called? The castle reconstruction site at Givoire is based on an actual project that is presently ongoing at Goudelin, France, where craftsmen are building a 13th century castle using the tools and raw materials of the time. The endeavor will indeed take decades, and the site is open to the public. Like, you can go and visit this site in France, and where they're rebuilding a 13th century French castle using materials and methods from the time. And Cassiopeia Witt is in the character in this book who is doing that. She has some interesting backstory. She's a really kind of interesting, questionable, also power, you know. She is who I wish they had, what they had done with Black Widow. She would have been so much better, like, this character, or actually, better Black Widow. But she's also Safidic Muslim and North African. And you're like, she has different complicated feelings about the Catholic Church and what they did. And then other people involved with the Templars, like, are we there to revel in the church's downfall? Are you there to, you know, seize things? Why are you there? And it's a very interesting. Cassiopeia Witt is one of the most interesting characters, and she becomes a reoccurring character in this series. And I can't, like, I know this series because I love this series, and I've read every single book. Hi, by the way, this first book was published in 2006, and the 18th volume comes out next month. And specifically, oh, that's the wrong book, but that's book 2. Steve Barry's book 18, The Atlas Maneuver, comes out. That's the excerpt. It doesn't have the announced release date. I just pre-ordered it. Literally, I just pre-ordered this book, and it comes out in February from Barnes & Noble. So this is 2006. That is, this is book. He has been publishing a book a year of this series for the past 18 years. It is very, very well done, and I am looking forward to, for next month, reading the second book, which is one of my favorite books that has Cassiopeia in it, Cassie Witt. She is a great character. So, the Alexandria Link. Cotton Malone retired from the high-risk world of elite operatives for the U.S. Justice Department to lead the low-key life of a rare book dealer. But his quiet existence is shattered when he receives an anonymous email. You have something I want. You're the only person on Earth who knows where to find it. Go get it. You have 72 hours. If I don't hear from you, you will be childless. His horrified ex-wife confirms that the threat is real. Their teenage son has been kidnapped. When Malone's Copenhagen bookshop is burned to the ground, it becomes brutally clear that those responsible will stop at nothing to get what they want. And what they want is nothing less than the Lost Library of Alexandria. A cradle of ideas, historical, philosophical, literary, scientific, and religious, the Library of Alexandria was unparalleled in the world. But 1,500 years ago, it vanished into the mists of myth and legend, its vast bounty of wisdom coveted ever since by scholars, fortune hunters, and those who believe its untold secrets hold the key to ultimate power. Now a cartel of wealthy international moguls bent on altering the course of history is desperate to breach the library's hallowed walls, and only Malone possesses the information they need to succeed. At stake is an explosive ancient document with the potential not only to change the destiny of the Middle East, but to shake the world's three major religions to their very foundations. Pursued by a lethal mercenary, Malone crosses the globe in search of answers. His quest will lead him to England and Portugal, even to the highest levels of American government, and the shattering outcome deep in the Sinai Desert, will have worldwide repercussions. The whole series is very well written. What is my other favorite book in this series? The Malta Exchange is great. I love the Lincoln Myth. The whole trilogy, well, Lincoln Myth, Patriot Threat, and 14th Colony are all very interesting in how they look at American history and American stories of myth. I'm really quite happy and think that this whole series will be really enjoyable, again, to reread. And I'm not gonna. And then, of course, there's the standalones, which, because he's not happy just writing 18 Cotton Malone books, he also had. Okay, so the Amber Room, the Romanoff Prophecy, and the Third Secret, those three were written before the first Cotton Malone book, and then the Columbus Affair and Omega Factor came after. Oh, and then this is the Grant Blackwood series. So Grant Blackwood is a side character in Cotton Malone. Well, Luke Daniels. Grant Blackwood is the other writer. So Luke Daniels is a side character in the Cotton Malone series, and then he gets his own first book, which is kind of interesting, and I think it'll be really good. Yeah, it's an entire series of myth adventures, kind of, but well written, well researched, well history. Yeah, Ninth Man is good. It's not my favorite, but it is really good. So, for those of you who did read this book, what did you think? So I did get a message, a comment on the YouTube. Hi, by the way, if you don't know, I do have a YouTube. It exists. You can go find all of the VODs for all of the streams that I do over there, and all of the stories and all the things. But one of the things I did on the YouTube is I posted on my community page, a poll, which of the two books were people most excited for. Most people were really excited for Red Rising, and then there was people who were, one person who was really excited for Templar Legacy. I was like, okay, that's great. And then Trig, who is a wonderful friend to the channel and community member, says, I finished the Templar Legacy yesterday. So this is a week ago. I finished the Templar Legacy yesterday and immediately started the second Cotton Malone book. I bought the Kindle edition that combines the first 4 books. I almost put the book aside after reading the prologue, but I'm glad I kept reading because the rest was excellent. And that is the thing. You trust the process when it comes to Cotton Malone, because some of the prologues are like, oh, this is going to be dark. Oh, this is going to be bad. Oh, I don't know that I'm going to like this. And then you get into the story and you're like, oh, this is really well written. This is an interesting take on this question. This is an interesting development that makes sense for this character. The world building and the cause and effect of the things that happen. Because at the end of this book, hi, again, spoiler tag is up. At the end of this book, the Templars decide that they're going to come back out onto the world stage as actually existing and actually hanging out and being things and doing things around the world. That has an effect on the world state that Cotton is going to have to deal with going forward, right? Like, all of the books have an effect, like they're adventure novels, right? They're myth-adventure, kind of mystery, historical fiction novels. But they have an effect on the world state, and Cotton, it isn't just a, mystery novel where you could drop the character, it's just, oh, it's another mystery, whatever, and the minor things that aren't really affecting the world state. All they affect is Cotton. No, these things affect the world state. There's massive changes that happen because of the results of the plots of these books, and how each one comes out from the next deals with that. And I am very much looking forward to rereading them all again, because I love them. I really do. I think that they're really, really interesting. I don't like all of them the same. Like, there's some that I'm not as big a fan of, but I think they're all very good books, and they will be really enjoyable to reread. So, did any of you have any thoughts about the Templar Legacy after you had read it? Is there anything you want to share from your perspectives about Cotton Malone or Cassiopeia Vitt, or, you know, Mark and Stephanie and Nels and, you know, Abbe Saumonier? Wants to read it. That counts. Crit. If I can encourage someone to read a book, if me saying something encourages you to take the chance on a book because you enjoy what I say, then I think that's a great thing. Yeah, Kolchak, I don't get me wrong, I've always liked the Dresden Files. You're right. They're not War and Peace. And from my own perspective, I think they're not even Jim Butcher's best series. I honestly think that's the Codex Alera and then the Aeronauts, 2 books in the Aeronauts series I also really enjoy. But I think that Dresden is a really good series. They're good pulp adventure novels, and I have fun with them. And that's what this is. This is a pulp adventure mystery novel that is well written and well researched. And I think that's okay. Like, you can have the big question, like, Red Rising is a book that asks a lot of questions and forces you as a reader to think about your answers. This is just fun. And yeah, you might be intrigued by certain concepts and certain questions and then want to go out and find out more. But it's not killing you to, it's not making you overly think things. It's a good adventure story with interesting characters, actual stakes, things that you feel like, yes, it's an adventure series. There are 18 books. You know Cotton Malone is going to survive to 18 books, fine. But at the same time, in the moment, you can feel tension and concern for the character because you're not sure how he's going to get out of this. Or if he's going to get out of this okay, he might be injured. He might, there are times you're like, oh, he might even die from but even while meta, you understand that there are multiple books in the series and that he's going to survive. Fine. But it's not world breaking. He's not perfect. There are problems. He doesn't know everything. He needs to get help from people. He needs to consult things. He's good at what he did, and now he's good at books. And from that, there are these possibilities that he can get more information. And I really think that it's an interesting take, right? Like, the crew that he builds around him through the various choices and adventures that he goes on for Cotton Malone all have skill sets that aid in Cotton achieving the goal that he wants or what he needs to survive. And because Cotton is not perfect, he doesn't know everything. I think the best comparison I can make is that Steve Berry is oh god, who's the author? Oh god. Oh. Okay, so Steve Berry is a modern, and by modern I mean 21st century version of Tom Clancy, right? Like, Cotton Malone is a 21st century version of Jack Ryan, right? Like, the books, not the movies, and not the video games. But Jack Ryan is a very particular type of character. He's a very particular type of person. He's writing in Tom Clancy is writing these very particular adventure stories where Jack Ryan is not perfect. He does not know everything. There are things he doesn't know, and he has to work with others and try and find out the right way to do it. Cotton Malone does the same thing. He's just in a different kind of genre. And the world has changed since the 1980s when the first book was published, right? When was the first book published? 1989, right? Clear and Present Danger was published in 1989. So what is the actual... Oh, Cardinal of the Kremlin. So Cardinal of the Kremlin was 1988. Okay. I want you to know that according to certain people in the on Wikipedia, that they are calling Clear and Present Danger a dystopian novel. No, it's a political thriller. Move on. It's a thriller. It's what it is. It's a thriller. And I'm just like, a dystopian? I don't think people know what that word means anymore. Oh no, here it is. It's the themes. Oh, here you go. Clear and Present... Oh god, I can't even with this moment. Alright, y'all. Clear and Present Danger is considered to be a work of dystopian fiction. It talks about the abuse of political and military power and addresses the dangers of government bureaucracy, where no one can be held accountable for their actions implied to be illegal by a democratic society. The book was released around the time of the Iran-Contra affair, which strikingly bears many parallels to the novel. Additionally, it pushes the narrative that the war on drugs, which was also a major issue during the time of the book's publication, is corrupting law enforcement and that the status quo is enforced in the struggle. I'm like, you don't know what a dystopian novel is. you don't know what dystopian novel means. Oh god. It's a political thriller. It's a political thriller wherein your main character is a CIA spy. It has... This is not dystopian. Because at the end of the day, Jack Ryan doesn't want to leave the CIA. He wants to continue working for the US government, but he does want to remove the corruption from the government. That isn't dystopian. Yeah, that was written by someone who has no idea what the book is actually about. Or read a synopsis by a particular English teacher who also was probably never actually read this book when it originally came out, and has been taught that this book is a dystopian novel because it talks about the abuses of political power. That's not what this book is about. It's not even what the film is about, for God's sake. Like, I would be, oh my god. Yeah, there's a big difference between Clear and Present Danger and 1984. Yeah, like, I'm not that, how to state this, well, I'm not like you all, but damn, I'm definitely not that. The same time frame-ish. Exactly. Like, this is, Ryan is not, Jack Ryan, none of the Jack Ryan novels could be considered dystopian. Like, maybe Call of Duty, Tom Clancy's Black Ops, you could maybe get to dystopian. But I don't really think so. Because again, Jack Ryan believes in the ideals of democracy and wants to fix the system from within inside the system. I can't even. But I do appreciate you, Crit. I appreciate you so much for that. That made me laugh. So yes, my comparison is the 1980s and 90s had Jack Ryan, the 2000s and the 2010s and up until 2023 have Cotton Malone. And that difference comes in the difference of their character, right? Because the political thriller that Tom Clancy is writing is dealing with Jack Ryan in the CIA, still working within inside the system. Cotton Malone is retired. He's now dealing with historical mysteries and how that is going to affect things. But that is the bigger feel and the writing style and the more interesting kind of I can see the evolution from Jack Ryan to Cotton Malone. I can then I can go even further back, right? Like, because I can see the evolution from the Ian Fleming's James Bond books to Jack Ryan to, you know, to the Bourne books, and then eventually into Cotton Malone. Like, I can see that evolution of that character. Soon. I have no idea of Coldrake. So Coldrake says, a dystopia is a place in which humanity is dehumanized and people live fearful lives. Furthermore, governing these societies are totalitarian regimes and often are faced with severe environmental catastrophes. I would even go so far as to say there might be, they don't necessarily have to be totalitarian regimes, they have to be regimes. A dystopia could also just be, like Cyberpunk Red is set in a dystopia, right? Like, Night City isn't a totalitarian regime per se, but it is an oligarchical one where money rules, and if you don't have that, there is an oppressive regime. Well, I think oppressive regime is the word I want to reuse there. And often are faced with severe environmental catastrophes. That's true. Although that doesn't necessarily have to be true, but I think it's one of the severe environmental catastrophe is a means by which the regime controls the population because of scarcity of resources. None of those Jack Ryan stories are this, unless the editor feels the U.S. government is that totalitarian regime. Exactly. Jack Ryan, it is not a dystopia. I can't. If anybody wants to clip this, I have two things to say. Number one, Jack Ryan is not a dystopia, and number two, who are teaching you, like, literary analysis people? I want to know. Can you show me? If not, find Phil Collins, because I guess he knows the answer. But that's it for tonight, I think. I think that's actually a great place to stop, because I'm going to plan what we're reading. Actually, no, we can't stop yet. We have to plan what we're reading next. For next week, I have to get my calendar out. Calendar. Okay. So, the 3rd, which is February. Well, we should look at February as a month. All right. So, February 24th is the last Saturday of the month. So that is when I'm going to have, the next, Steve Berry, and, so that is going to be, okay, so Steve Berry, Alexandria link. That's what we're going to do. By Steve Berry for read along. And Golden Sun, which is the sequel to Red Rising. So that's going to be for the 24th. That's Crit, I would say you don't necessarily have to read the Templar one first. In fact, you could. Steve Berry does a good enough job of summarizing the major events of the book before, so you don't feel too out of place. They do build off of each other, but they don't feel and you probably would enjoy it. But for the first couple Cotton Malone books, you can kind of like, you can read Alexandria Link without necessarily having read Templar Legacy. And if you want to pick up with Templar Alexandria Link, then you can definitely have that. I can tell you that the nice thing about this is I got this from my local library. A lot of local libraries carry Steve Berry. He's a really popular author. And I know that on the Libby app, for those who like audiobooks or enjoy audiobooks, I know that his books are on the Libby app, which is a lot of libraries now use. It's kind of like an interlibrary loan for audiobooks. And so it's a really great app for that. Oh, I'm glad that so Coldray says, I just borrowed the audiobook of Elizabeth Wheatley's Dangerous Assassin, only 11 hours. I mean, if you can get the audiobooks and you enjoy reading that way, then good for you. Enjoy them. That's kind of my point of view on the whole thing, is like audiobooks are good. Yeah, that seems about right, actually. But for next week, on the 3rd, I don't know what I'm gonna read. Because I ordered them yesterday, but they're probably going to take 5 to 10 business days, so I can't guarantee that the next book in Dangerous Assassin is going to get here. Elliot Brooks, Peace and Turmoil, the second book isn't out yet, so that's not going to be a thing. I could order... Oh, we can do Jade War. Jade War by Fonda Lee. And the next book in Catherine Reynolds' series, the Fey Realm series, The Broken Dragon. That's the other one I'm going to order right now. And then I think the third book I'm going to read for next Saturday is going to be a random choice from the library. I like doing that sometimes, where I'll just like walk into the library and be like, okay, what have you got interesting on the shelves that maybe I haven't read before? And pick that up and see what it is. And then if I do that, I will post about it on the community page on YouTube, and share all of that information. And I'll make sure to post all of the links to all of the author pages. And that's one of the things I'm really trying to do a lot, is posting to the author pages, so that you can see how you want to, if you want to follow any of these books or read any of these books. Follow along for there. Yeah, Coldrick's saying Hoopla is really pushing Sarah J. Maas as a Court of Thorn and Roses series. That's because the next 2 books are coming out tonight, effectively, or tomorrow, this week. Like one book is coming out this week and one book is coming out the following week or the week after. And I am not a Sarah J. Maas fan. The A Court of Thorns and Roses series is not a book series that is for me. If people enjoy it, I'm glad. I'm glad that people enjoy it. I'm glad that people want to engage with reading, and it's becoming really popular and people would want it, and I'm just like, it's not for me. It's not the kind of story I enjoy. For a variety of reasons. And I liked her Throne of Glass series. Kind of, like I could read it, but it wasn't that great. It wasn't my opinion. But I'm also not a big fan of most of the really popular writers that people talk a lot about on like Bookstagram or Book Talk. And I'm going to shock the world again by saying I'm not a Brandon Sanderson fan, by any means. Uh, and I think that's a true statement right there. That's a true statement right there. I know what I might pick up. Yeah, I'll see if the library has that. But yeah, I'm gonna pick up a couple things. I mean, there's something interesting in the library, something fun I haven't read before. Coldrake, it's not even that. It's technically like there has been a break between her last book in that series and the next book that's coming out, and then the other book that's coming like 2 weeks later is part of the other series that she's writing. They're all interconnected. They're all part of one universe. Okay, good for her. And she's making lots of money. Good for you. Like, make your money. Get popular with the girlies on TikTok who want to read fairy smut. And not even that great fairy smut anyways. Like, alright. It's not to my taste. But I think that I prefer plot, where romance is an element, not... No, it is not a Twilight. It is not another Twilight. It's like a couple steps above Twilight. It's slightly better written, and there is almost a better plot than Twilight. And I don't judge people for reading. That's not true. There is an entire book I will judge people for reading. But for the most part, if you are a person who just kind of enjoys that particular type of reading, that your particular type of reading is you like to read the popular books, or you like to read, you know, romance novels, or you like to read, you know, Tom Clancy or Clive Cussler kind of adventure books, and that's it. Good for you. Enjoy your reading. I will fully endorse you reading. I am not a fan of ACOTAR, and I don't have a problem with people reading them. I do have a problem with people making them out to be the greatest thing that the fantasy genre has ever published, and like the great guiding light for romantasy, and ooh, all of these books are like so unique because they're like writing this complex like love story and it's all sex, and it's like, I've never read a sexy book like this before. I'm like, girl, go read Laurel K. Hamilton, Sherilyn Kenyon, hell, Anne McCaffrey, Kushiels. Go read Kushiels. Right? Like, there are an entire number of... Oh, no, Coldrake. Sarah J. Maas wishes she could even breathe the same air as Anne Rice. That's a no. Sarah J. Maas wants to be... well, I don't know if she wants to be, but her audience wants her to be a... like the greatest thing that's created its own new genre. It's like romance and fantasy put together, and it's its own genre now. And I'm like, okay, but Sherilyn Kenyon has been writing that for 30 years. Laurel K. Hamilton, I would like to introduce you to a little series called Anita Blake. Hi, please go read it. Like, that's what bothers me. What bothers me is the fact that there are people that legitimately, I understand, they are younger. These books weren't as prevalent to them at the time. These are the popular books now, but the argument is, let's say that this thing is the be all and end all, and it came first and it did its thing. And it's like, no, there's 40, 50 years of history behind it that could that seriously influence this book series. Now, it's the same kind of rant I had it's the same kind of rant I had a couple months ago when I first saw Fourth Wing in the bookstore. And I was in Barnes and Noble, and it was when Fourth Wing, you know, just before Iron Flame came out, and it's like taking over TikTok and all of this stuff. And Fourth Wing, they had created an end cap of like, if you like Fourth Wing, you should read these books. And I'm looking at this list of books going, okay, so this book is supposed to be dragon porn and, you know, like new adult romantasy with dragons and bonding with your dragon. And from there, you're supposed to, like, oh, it's supposed to be a political thriller. I'm like, okay. I don't see any Dragon Riders of Pern anywhere on this end cap. I don't see anything of Valdemar on this end cap. I don't see anything about any of Cheryl and Kenyon on this end cap. What you've put here is Aragorn, and Christopher Paolini is not writing porn, and definitely not writing dragon porn, and A Song of Ice and Fire, and you're like, oh, and ACOTAR, right? Like those three. And I'm like, if you're reading Fourth Wing, you've already read ACOTAR, or you came into it one way or the other. You know, you went from one to the other. That's not a surprise. I would not say that you should then jump to A Song of Ice and Fire. That, I think, is not real. But there's a whole series of books that you, as a bookseller, could have promoted that were similar themes and similar plot points, and just see, that's Crit asked the question, is it a younger point of view, or what publishers would make more money selling? See, the thing is, this is an end cap in Barnes & Noble, and they can put whatever they want there. And in fact, most local Barnes & Nobles, it's really interesting. Barnes & Noble is unique in retail spaces because they have to have certain display tables for their nationwide, but each individual store has permissions to do certain like displays that they think are going to be popular in their store. So an end cap like that is going to be based on the store. Now, who in the store made that decision, that I don't know. It could have been a younger person in the audience, or it could have just been, you know, my leaning point is someone who didn't know a lot of the store, like the history of fantasy writing, and anything that's older than 5 years or 10 years, and therefore just did not know that there is such a thing called the Dragon Riders of Pern that did the dragon porn books much, much better first. Like, Coldrake asked the question, might you have ever read the Diane Duane series, the number one, The Door into the Fire, Door into Shadow, and Door into Sunset? Yes, I have. Yeah, I've read Diane Duane. I've read, Crit hasn't, though. But, like, I was a kid who literally lived in the library. Like, we didn't buy a lot of books. I read what was in the library and what was available, and the nice thing about a lot of libraries is that they have a lot of both new content, but they also have a lot of backorder content, right? Like, and you could find, if you search, you know, when you walked through the shelves, you could find a lot of stuff that had been there that's 10, 15 years old, right next to, maybe not right next to the new releases, because sometimes they put those at like a different section, like, you know, right in front of your face when you walked in, but recent releases, right? Like once they left the month at the new release counter, they would go into like the same area, and so they'd be right next to each other, and you'd be like, oh, this is interesting, I've never read Piers Anthony before, let me go and read all of Piers Anthony. That by the way was a choice I made once I read them all. Yeah. Yes, Diane Duane is a really good writer for that series, and I think it's a really good, well written. Let me lead you down the path and showcase you to this plot, and you will be very surprised where we end up. But it's great. But yeah, so that's my mini rant on the problems that I see. And I think part of that ties back to a lot of the trendification of things like TikTok and Instagram, and how people are like, oh, let me show you this brand new thing that I will, um, uh, that I think will be great. And then it becomes a trend. And then you're like, okay, so it's very hard to talk about on social media platforms books that are not on trend or popular or new, which is why I'm really happy that we're doing this read along series so that we can read, like, gives me a reason to talk about older books in general, but also gives me a reason to talk about like books that maybe aren't as popular to the zeitgeist at the moment, and that, you know, aren't Brandon Sanderson, Sarah J. Maas, or erotica, which apparently is everything that keeps getting recommended to me on Instagram in the last couple weeks. I'm like, yo, I read a lot of stuff, but that's not a lot of it. Okay, so what are we reading? Reading for next week: Jade War by Fonda Lee, The Broken Dragon by Catherine Reynolds. I'm going to actually order that right now. I'll get there by Monday. Yay! And then but then I get to read that. That'll be fun. Yeah, recommend erotica. They just suggest you should get out of the house. I mean, that's the thing, is like, I'm just gonna sit here and say that there are plenty of things that people could go and read and enjoy, and I will wait and see what happens when they come back. I am going, but we should sign off because it's after midnight, and I am going to have to do some work for tomorrow. Because you want to know what I have to do for tomorrow? I have to finish a little something, because we have a new game starting tomorrow. Starting tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern. Be right here. I get to be a player, and Pope is in the GM seat because we are going to be playing some Mass Effect: The Gathering Dark. And if you saw, I posted on all the socials the cast list and some dossier secrets. I get to play your Drell Doctor. Yeah, she's gonna be fun. It'll be great. And I will, but that will be tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on the channel. And then, of course, the VODs will go up on Mondays on YouTube. I'm sure that it will be really, really great. I'm looking forward to it. Lots of drama, lots of interesting decisions will happen, and I cannot wait. And the cast that's going to be there is going to be fabulous. PB is going to be playing in that game. Pirate's going to be playing in that game. Mandy, Lady Luck 34, and Arvandus. Arvandus is the other player, and they're all going to be fabulous. They're fabulous, fabulous people, and so much shenanigans and tragic feels. I made decisions with my money, yo. Also, there will be a surprise during the intermission. I'm just saying that there's going to be a surprise during the intermission. You should be here for that. It should be lots of fun. But that'll be Sunday night. And then on Monday, you can find me over on Wandering DM's channel for Vampire the Masquerade Montreal by Night. We are underground. I'm sure this will be fine. No, this is not going to be fine. And certain people think that they can save people. It's going to be fun. We're going to see. We're going to see what happens. But thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. Thank you for being here in chat. I also see you over on YouTube. Thank you for being there and leaving a comment and a like and a share. All of that's great, and it helps the channel grow. And we appreciate you. No one is up because it is 12:15, and so I'm going to just take this as an end and let the credits roll, because hopefully this works. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight, and I look forward to seeing you all in the future. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.